Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jolene Avendaño, and I am the manager of network engagement and communications here at the National Center for Farmworker Health. And I'll be starting this off with you guys. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. And I'll let first and foremost Mario introduce himself. We work together at NCFH, and then Edgar too before we start.
Thank you very much, Jolene. My name is Mario Garza. I'm with NCFH, the National Center for Farmworker Health. Before we get started, we want to make sure that the Spanish interpreter is set. So Maria, you should be set now. Let us know. For anyone who needs assistance with the Spanish interpretation, look at the little globe right below in your Zoom window. There should be a little globe. As you can see, there's a screenshot on your screen right now. Once you click on the little globe icon that says interpretation, make sure to click on Spanish, and Maria should be loud and proud and ready to go. So I'm going to give a thumbs up. Maria, I'm going to assume this is good to go. And saludos a Christine. Perfect. Thank you, Maria. And thanks, everyone. Once again, my name is Mario Garza. I'm with the National Center for Farmworker Health. I'm in the communications department in the CDC division, where I work with Jolene Avendano. And we do everything communications. We've done traditional communications with radio campaigns, as well as our new venture into the virtual world. And that includes all things social media, videography, photography, etc. We have a nice team of ours from NCFH as well. This includes Aaron, Yvette, Bethany, etc. And there's a good amount of us as well. So we're very excited to meet you all. And I'm going to pass it on over to Edgar Franks to introduce himself briefly.
Hello, my name is Edgar. I'm with Familias Unidas por la Justicia. It's an independent farm worker union based in Washington State. To my side over here, you can't see him. His name is Marciano Sanchez. He's one of our organizers. I'm the political director for the union. Great to be here, having this conversation with everybody. So, all in the name of protecting farm worker health and safety. So thank you.
Thank you, Edgar. And for those who are just trickling in, welcome. We will be starting off our social media training. Just a brief overview of the agenda is we're going to talk about some easy tips for posting, talking a little bit more about the primary audience and why we're here. Then we will pass it over to Edgar to talk about Familias Unidas por la Justicia and some of the amazing communications work that they're doing over on their side. And then we'll finally break out into different rooms to network and to talk a little bit more about best practices, whether it's something that's happening in your organization or something that you've learned here today that you want to start implementing in your organizations. And finally, we'll have closing remarks. So here are some of the training objectives for today. We hope that you learn some easy tips for posting on different social media channels. We also hope that you learn some specific goals on media practices to connect specifically with farm workers, and then to exchange some social media posting practices and network with those who are present today. So let's go ahead and start with who is our primary audience. So we're here because we want to connect with farm workers. There is data out there that says that a lot of the farm workers are actually foreign born and who are predominantly male and are under the age of 44. So that's who we're trying to connect with, predominantly with. They speak predominantly Spanish, and then 6% are bilingual. And then there is the 1% chance who are most comfortable conversing in an indigenous language. We have different Mexican indigenous languages, and we have Central American indigenous languages as well. Slightly more than 1 in 4 farm workers are comfortable speaking in English, but this also depends on how long they've been working in the United States. So just some tidbits to know. This is the audience that we're trying to focus on and create materials for. Now that we know that, it's important to know also media consumption. So How are they consuming information? How are they accessing digital information specifically? A lot of farm workers have reported having access to sources of digital information. 96% of them have had a cell phone with text messaging capabilities, and 92% has access to a cell phone with internet. So a lot of you are familiar, maybe that some of them do use WhatsApp a lot and Facebook. And we saw in those responses in the registration that a lot of folks were using Facebook and WhatsApp to connect with farm workers directly. And so the interesting bit here, though, is that the indigenous language speakers had less access to the internet and digital information, but still have texting capabilities, proving that sometimes it's a little bit better to send them WhatsApp messages. And we'll talk a little bit more about the different uses of social media networks. So let's dive right in with some simple tips for posting. This is just preliminary tips. Always including a visual post is important because they tend to be high performers on social media networks. They also always be sure to include an eye-catching, colorful visual, an element that kind of grabs someone's eyes, like the one that we see on the side. This is just a one-liner. It kind of gives a directive and it tells you, this is what we're talking about. This is what we want you to do. Other examples include as you can see there, that's an example of a TikTok. I'm going to call him an influencer because he does get a lot of comments from a lot of fellow campesinos out there. And this is Trabajos del Campo. As you can see here, just the simple visual of the work that they're doing in the field, the simple panning of just what goes in when they do the pizca, as they call it. That's what's appealing. That's what people connect with. You see a lot of the comments there start just reminiscing of like my time in the US, you know, picking strawberries, or when my family used to do that. So that's an example of those visuals to utilize. As you can see, there's also another post of pictures and the engagement, 241 likes and hearts and 83 comments of predominantly people who have experienced life on the fields. Also, utilizing social media to its strengths is very important. Facebook, we know the farm workers are, for the most part, connecting through Facebook. We know that Twitter is more for your stakeholders to talk more about advocacy, for more call to actions. YouTube is utilized for storytelling and more of a tool for visuals. WhatsApp is great to send those small bites of information that you can easily exchange and share automatically with other people across different networks. And then there's Instagram, and Instagram is another kind of storytelling tool, but it's more of a picture and behind the scenes information tool. So just as a reminder to always remember, what is it that you need to utilize and who you're trying to connect with? That will kind of let you know what you need to do. Avoid jargon. So making sure that text is easy to read and simple to understand. And then multilingual posts. A lot of you talked about either having content in different languages and not knowing how to kind of organize all of that. So consider posting separate posts when you're trying to, when your post is text heavy. So an example of that would be this. So we are sharing here some flyers that have a lot of information. So instead of putting the information in English and in Spanish, you dedicate a separate post to the corresponding language. That way the information gets across, it's easier to read, and it's easier to kind of identify the different languages there are. And then finally, having a call to action. All this posting, all this content, it's important to have an action follow it. It's important to tell people what you want after you've posted, whether it's give us a comment, like our page, share it with your friend. It's a directive that helps people kind of know like, okay, I read this piece of information, now I know what to do with it. So it's always important to have a call to action. These are some resources that we will be sharing with you guys, just along on graphic design, on readability analyzers, on consulting firms that can help with language access, and then different educational materials that are available at our NCFH webpage. So now I'm going to pass it over to Edgar and the folks at Familias Unidas por la Justicia. And take it away, Edgar.
Yeah, hello everyone. Again, I'm Edgar with Familias Unidas. I'm gonna try to see if I can pull up some pictures really quick that we've been using to get the word out. And I've oh, here we go. Desktop. Are people able to see my desktop? Okay. So we've been using a lot of images for the last year about how to get the message out to our workers around COVID and health and safety. I think one of the big things that happened last year was there was a big worker strike that was happening in Yakima because a lot of the workers there were getting COVID and there was no PPE or rules or protections going down their way. So we showed up. And we started just documenting, supporting the workers and their strikes. And we also started taking pictures, so kind of like this during the strike. And then we would caption them about like, these workers are out on strike, they need help, they need our support. And this got the attention of a lot of the policymakers and workers all around the community. So at first it started off at one processing plant, then at another. Overall, there was 7 strikes all going on at the same time, all over COVID and how many people were getting sick and there was no protection. And then also we started getting calls from farm workers, people out in the fields, regarding that was also happening to them. So, you know, that was kind of our reality check during the whole pandemic. And also the urgency of why we have to be, you know, out there in the fields and the processing plants, anywhere there's farm workers or people in agriculture, we'd have to be there in solidarity and support them. So yeah, we started taking these images and again, just trying to put them out on social media of workers out there trying to protect their lives and the lives of their coworkers in the community. This was in Yakima in Eastern Washington. That one time was ground zero for COVID outbreaks on the West Coast. Even though it's a small community, most of it is revolved around agriculture. So yeah, our union ever since then has committed itself to doing, you know, getting out and protecting the farm workers any way that we can. So we're glad that we had this partnership with the National Council for Farm Worker Health, using social media as said was a very effective way on the ground. So we I think started trying to pay attention to our networks. Our biggest one was Facebook, is Facebook. And we also have Instagram and Twitter. So using all these platforms that we have to really try to amplify the message of protecting farm worker health. So I think lot of the information, one of the early things that we really caught on was a lot of the information that was coming out from either, the World Health Organization or the Centers for Disease Control or our governor and Department of Health, our state Department of Health, was very, very technical and very confusing. And it was really hard to understand, even for us, that we were trying to keep on top of everything. So we immediately started thinking about, well, this is critical information that we need to disseminate to our community. But what is the best way of doing that? Keep in mind, in our community here in the area we are in Washington, most of the farm workers are indigenous Mexican that don't really speak English or much Spanish, speak mostly here Mixteco and Triqui. So how could we get these real technical, complicated language into a way that can be understood to our community? And again, some of the words that were being used never aren't even part of some of the indigenous languages. So how do you break down those barriers to make it understandable to everyone? Luckily, we had people here in our union that stepped up, and took on the challenge of trying to, make that information accessible, that language accessible. And we started producing videos and images and anything we could in all the different languages to really help to get the word out. I can show really, again, like one of the videos that we helped. And again, it wasn't like super produced or anything like that. It was just like basically us just sitting around in our office with one of the flyers that we got like last year, one of the early flyers, and just kind of explaining what was on the flyer. So really like basic stuff. I'll see if this one plays. Yeah. So this is me. I'll be doing the Spanish part, and this is Tomas. Hopefully this is also not one of the blooper reels. I look for it, and we have to go through these a lot. Like, it's actually pretty fun making them because there's a lot of laughing, and then the challenge is trying to hold a straight face to make sure that you don't remember the time you messed up. So this is Tomas over here on this side. He's Triqui, and I'm in Spanish. I'll just share a couple minutes. It's a 4-minute video, but just a little sample of just the kind of stuff that we started off doing.
Edgar, we can't hear the audio, so I think you need to click the share audio button.
Oh, where would I find that?
If you stop sharing and reshare, that's the easiest way.
Okay, stop share.
When you click on share, there's a little button you can check off that says share sound, computer sound.
Okay, so share screen and then share sound. All right, share screen. Okay, where at? Oh, here it is. I see it. Oh gosh, no, it's asking me for that.
It's all right. It's the virtual world. We all go through it. It's part of the social media training.
Can people hear that?
You can raise the volume a little bit.
Y la número 7, los empleadores tienen que proveer el equipaje personal que es requerido sin cobrarle a los trabajadores.
Número 7, la sesión compañero, entonces si Tana brazo buena que ocupando buena que protegiendo buena se quita China, ¿verdad?
Y pues los trabajadores.
Yeah, so that's just a little bit a sample for the whole ever since then we probably made like we try to do at least like once a month to update people on what's going on with the governor's orders and all that. But I think we've got a pretty good response, I think, overall in getting the information. We do get a lot of like direct messages. We refer people about where they can get their vaccines or get tested. You know, and we're still very active within the rulemakings of the state regarding agricultural workers based on, you know, because we're one of the few organizations in the state that really does a lot of outreach on labor issues and organizing with farm workers for, I mean, the last 8 years. And bringing that perspective to the state and that information that sometimes is missing in conversations around legislation or rulemaking. We still, I mean, personally, in the union's perspective, the rules can be way stronger. The industry here has a lot of power and always wants to keep rules as lax as possible. But, you know, as farm workers, we want to make sure that we have the best, strongest rules based on the most recent science and studies that's going on. So yeah, and when we use our Facebook, we're really mindful about our audience. Again, we try to review everything, all the information, make sure it's not like a 10-minute video, something that's short, within anything longer than 4 minutes. I think for us is too long. We try to keep it at 2 minutes. We break it down. So we have the English or the Spanish videos posted once, and then a Mixteco, and then a Triqui. So, and we kind of title them in the top, like, oh, this is a Triqui's video. If you want more information, you know, message us or so yeah, we try to, and again, the production is super low budget. We're just here in our office with our iPhone or any phone that we find, and just us like try not to like read off a paper or anything, kind of like be as natural as possible in a kind of in a conversation type way, be kind of like, you know, it is hard to talk to a camera. It's really weird. So you kind of try to like, you know, try to act as natural and loose as possible while trying to give out some really important information. We did do a couple videos that are like super, we got like this guy that has like his awesome camera and everything. And I mean, it came out nice, but again, the message is still the most important part of it. The visuals and everything are really nice, but we still find it more comfortable just doing, you know, here in the office, sitting down and just talking straight to a camera.
Edgar, I have a question. So people have been posting questions on the chat. Is it okay if I ask you some questions?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the questions was, does anyone have a recommendation for a Spanish language readability analyzers, or is there a way that your organization kind of says like, this is easy to understand in language, or I mean in Spanish or in Triqui, or how do you assess that? And if folks in the general training have any kind of insights, if you want to post that as well, go ahead and put that in the chat.
Well, at least for myself, I kind of like just try to go off of what I would understand and how I would like to have something explained. I don't know if Marciano wants to say anything. He's right here. He's our Mixteco speaking organizer. And most of the union workers here are also like 80-90% Mixteco. So maybe he wants to explain.
Hi. So we, even though we do have members in our community that understand Spanish, there are, those cases where, even though they do understand it, speak it, doesn't necessarily mean that they can read it. And it's, when we decide to make a video, it's the easiest way for them to also be able to understand everything that we're talking about without having to put like a document up there so that they have to go read through it. Not everyone can, read at the same level as well. So we have to, just when we're deciding to make a video, we try to like make it as Edgar said, as like we're having a conversation with them. There has been people that have come up to us and come up to me telling me like, hey, you should probably make those videos a lot more professional when talking about these kind of topics. Well, we're not really trying to be professional, because if we are, then there wouldn't be a reason for us to make these videos if we're trying to use languages that our members aren't going to understand. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to make it as if we're having a conversation with them. We're sitting there talking with them so that they can understand them as well. We just do the video so that it's easier to understand. They don't have to read anything. And same with Mixteco. Most of our community in Mixteco don't know how to read the Mixteco language. I don't know how to read it either. So we just stick with audio. Mm-hmm.
So that sounds fascinating. It really sounds like you got to know the demographic you're trying to set information for, and then adapt, whether it's visual or like written. Another question that came in, and maybe you guys can give insights on some of the amazing pictures that you posted earlier. What is the best practice of getting consent to photograph? Do you guys just ask people, take it, we're good? Do they have to sign something?
Usually all our videos are during strikes, and our pictures are strikes or in public areas, but we do say like, hey, well, at least I tried my best and say like, hey, is it all right if before I take their picture, like, hey, can I take your picture? And we're probably gonna put it on Facebook like, oh yeah, totally, go for it. Most of the time, I think all the time it's pretty much like that. So people want to see themselves usually on social media, doing like regular things. So yeah, most of the time it's just verbal consent.
Verbal consent. So we have time for one more question. Does anyone have a question that would like to ask? I know people were posting, so I just want to make sure that we get to that.
Yo tengo una pregunta.
Oh.
Ok, como por ejemplo cuando dicen que dan información en lenguas indígenas, en este caso como el mixteco, porque nosotros aquí en el condado de Ventura, en California, estamos compartiendo la información sobre las clínicas móviles, las pruebas del COVID y todo esto en varias variantes de lengua mixteco, ¿verdad? Entonces, y aparte de eso también trabajamos con lenguas también zapoteca, triqui, guave y otras lenguas diferentes donde estamos compartiendo la información. Ahora, lo que yo opino es, primero que nada, muchas felicidades a Edgar por su gran trabajo que está haciendo, pero también sí se puede hacerse profesional el trabajo compartiendo la información en nuestras lenguas indígenas, por lo cual también yo soy una de estas personas que estamos motivando y haciendo de que la escritura en lenguas indígenas se pueda implementar. Sé que todavía no hay una escritura ya estabilizado como el español o el inglés, pero sin embargo se está haciendo poco a poco para que las personas de nuestra comunidad puedan empezar a ver un poco más sobre la escritura en mixteco y así poder rescatar también la lengua a la misma vez. Entonces, sí hay esa manera, nada más es un comentario, sí hay la manera de compartir la información profesional y también por escrita y también aparte de esto por el video con los subtítulos. De hecho, hay trabajos ya realizados que se ha publicado. En el futuro puedo compartir estos links con Erin y para que los puedan compartir también con sus comunidades o lugares que hay comunidades de habla mixteco. Gracias.
Gracias, Griselda. And for those who weren't able to switch over to the English channel as quickly, Griselda was sharing that there is a way to professionally develop literature, material, and resources in those indigenous languages for the reason to keep these languages. So it's almost like language justice, right? In preserving the languages and not just saying, just forgetting about it. There's a way to present it in a very professional manner in animations, in the scripture itself. So thank you, Griselda. If you can share those links that you were talking about, and we are more than happy to have that in the follow-up email as well. Okay, Edgar, do you want to have any closing remarks to your presentation?
No, I think, just to kind of reiterate, get to know the community that you're working with. I think that's, priority number one, and why we're helping it out. Again, because we come from Farmworker, we're direct, every decision that we make has an impact on our families. Literally. So I think that really puts an urgency and helps shift the way that we view our work and the purpose of why we're doing this work. It's not something that we stop or have an hourly schedule for. It's something that we live with every day of our lives. So yeah, just to kind of reiterate that that's the number one priority of worker safety, because we know we protect the workers, we're protecting our families.
Thank you, Edgar. That's fantastic. And once again, we feel a little privileged to have you on board and your organization, because we've seen y'all's work, we've seen the trail that you leave behind, and it's very influencing. And it's actually a large following on social media, which is obviously one of our goals and something that we're actually going to break into. Before we go into the next section, I want to remind everyone that we're going to be going into breakout rooms for about 20 minutes for some peer-to-peer sharing. We're going to have a Spanish breakout room. And so if you would prefer to be in the Spanish-speaking breakout room with myself, send a message to Paige Menking. That's Paige with an I, Paige. Or you could just send a chat right there to make it easier for you. Just say, I want to be in there, if you'd rather just say it out loud. And if you have any questions, feel free to put that in the chat as well. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can start getting into the details over our breakout sessions and elaborate a little bit more. Now, let me know if I do this correctly with our beautiful little new setup. Oh yeah, there it goes. It froze for me. So I don't see you all, but you all hopefully hear me and see me. And you should be seeing a full screen of breakout rooms. Please let me know when the screen goes back. We're going to be going into detail so everyone can share what has been their promising practices, what has been some, there we go. My screen's back and I've clicked too far. Breakout rooms. Please let me know if you can see this appropriately or not. You should just be seeing a computer stating breakout rooms. Thank you all. So as Edgar mentioned, as we've been talking, and I'm sure that we've all been experiencing, social media is quite a little monster that in our industry is pretty hard, especially given who we're aiming for, what we're trying to disseminate, what we're trying to inform folks about. It can be very detailed. It can be very difficult, especially because everything is text heavy. And that's just one of the plethora of things that we have to tackle, right? And so this is exactly why we look up to Fuge, since they have this organic approach that has been working for them in getting a good amount of interaction online, getting their movement going into their different activities, etc. And by the way, I didn't get confirmation. Can someone just nod that my screen's okay? You can hear me just fine. Thanks. Gracias, Jolyn. Well, and this is exactly what we want to go into details about in our breakout. We want everyone to bring in and be vulnerable. This is a good time for you to share with other organizations over what has been working, what hasn't been working. So let's start taking a look at what we're all dealing with together. Here's a short, simple circle graph for us, a pie chart over what we're utilizing. And for the most part, not surprisingly, we have the conglomerate Facebook, the world conqueror right now that we're all really focusing on, 44.1% of us. And we're just speaking about ourselves here, by the way. These are just organizations in this meeting today. We also have WhatsApp, 19.4%, which is a great way to communicate, especially one-on-one, and get those messages out, especially if you have some ongoing activities. Instagram is 13%, which of course is owned by Facebook, but it's also a very easy platform for sharing visuals and sharing information on the spot. Twitter is 15.4%. And as we mentioned, Twitter is more for stakeholders and other organizations. So it's a little bit less for actually direct outreach for the folks. Then we have small little slivers on the top that most of them didn't even really catch on. This includes like Snapchat and such. But YouTube, surprisingly, was only 3.5%, which I imagine a lot of us actually do try to use it. However, it's actually very demanding. There's a good amount of other things to consider when it comes to YouTube, as well as what Fuge and Edgar Franks just mentioned, with having to deal with your operations, having to deal with getting a videographer, having to deal with the technology, and having that professionally made. This is exactly what we like and what we've seen with Familias Unidas. They have this authentic approach that gets the information out to the people, and it gets it right on the spot, especially when you need it. As we've seen this whole past year and a half now, is that information comes out and then next week it might slightly change, and we need to reinvent the wheel sometimes entirely, or we just have to tweak our messaging. And with that, when it comes to the disseminators, AKA all the social media posters, that's a whole line of of things to do, right? Of tasks, of upkeep. And so with that, I can see a lot of these are demanding, especially like YouTube. Feel free to put any of your comments or any questions you have in chat. I'm not able to see the chat, but Jolyn can definitely keep me up to date here. I'm going to jump into the next one. And to start us off, before we get into the breakout rooms, we asked you all, in your organization's experience, what is the biggest challenge? What are you experiencing in social media? And what we've seen for the most part is a lot of things that we expected, but even a little bit more. And there might be some surprising answers for you as well. And this includes translating content, especially if you have to communicate with indigenous communities, or if you don't have a Spanish interpreter, for example. Creating content itself, which is already demanding. If you have an influencer on staff, you're lucky. I know I talk like an influencer. I know I look at the camera like an influencer. I am not an influencer. And I say that with a lot of levels. Avoiding jargon, that's hard for me to do. And that's why I'm not an influencer. Jargon is really hard for our jobs because jargon is our life, I feel, at least for the most of us, I'm sure, or at least we have to deal with the jargon. And to be more specific, jargon is all those extra 100 of words you use to explain that one concept, that one thing. I'm going to apologize for Maria, our interpreter, because I know I talk fast, but we're going to have a good time when we come into the breakout rooms as well. Staff time. This is something that, of course, we're all going to have different experiences, depending if we have a dedicated department to social media posting, or if you just have that one singular staff who tackles everything, and they're pretty much 3 departments or 5 departments in one. Culturally and linguistically appropriate material. Absolutely. Sure, we can interpret the information. Sure, we can disseminate. But of course, we always have to be conscious, and we always have to focus on it being relevant to our audience, right? And of course, as we mentioned at the very beginning, we do have a pretty specific audience that most of them don't get information as soon as they need it. They don't get the information as detailed as they need it, etc. There's also the lack of access to technology. Absolutely. especially with what we mentioned earlier. Not everyone has a computer. Not everyone is computer literate. There's a lot of obstacles we all have to tackle. And so with this, there's a good amount of difficulties that we may have to cross when it's coming to access to technology. And it's not just for our audience members. Sometimes it's for our own organization. Sometimes we don't have the software that we need, or sometimes we don't have a video editor on staff, or you don't have the factors so to hire a third party to make a fantastic video for yourself. Lastly, we've also seen that there's a lack of experience with the migrant population. And this is something that we'd like to share as well. And this is, don't be shy when you get into the breakout rooms. This is something you just like to elaborate on and get someone else's perspective. This is exactly the for that. And say, be vulnerable. Just ask your questions, ask your fellow colleagues if there's anything else that you'd like to learn from them, or something that you've just been struggling with as well. So if any of these ring a bell, keep it in mind as we go into a breakout room. We're going to be going into a Jamboard, and we're going to have our facilitators share their screen. It's going to be like a whiteboard where everyone's going to be chatting, and the facilitator will be adding their little Post-it notes and their little notes on there so we can all get our ideas together. Thereafter, we're going to be back in 20 minutes, and we're going to have each group, just one person from each group, share about a minute or two of what everyone discussed, some deltas, some alphas, what's working, what's not. And from there, we'll be closing the training. Of course, this isn't the finalized version. This is an ongoing virtual space that we're all tackling together. So NCFH is always going to be open for activities and more collaborations. Always feel free to reach out to myself or anybody that you communicate with on NCFH, or even Fuj. Familias Unidas, I'm sure, loves the collaborations as well. I'm going to go back as well. Once again, Paige, just want to make sure that everyone, if anybody communicated with you, I'm going to mention it one last time before we break out into breakout rooms. If you want the Spanish only sections, please send a message to Paige, and we'll put you in there with myself. If not, we're going to put you in a room, and it's going to be pretty diverse. You're going to be with folks who have large organizations, separate departments for just communication and social media. You're going to be with small organizations that probably only have that one person doing all the work. So keep that in mind, and we hope everyone gets to share their experiences in that way. And don't be shy. Never be shy. We do great work here, and I just want to make sure we feel comfortable here before we all get into breakout rooms.
And then just a quick little thing I'm giving Paige a little bit of time, as you guys are saying that you want in the Spanish rooms. I'm going to give her a little bit of time. With that said, I just also wanted to share one thing we didn't mention earlier is also just the scope of, there's a lot of people in this training, and just the scope of size of communications. So we have people in organizations that don't have anyone doing communications on their team, or they have one person, or it's a large organization with more than 5 people. So knowing that there's that spectrum of sizes of communications, just feel free to share your experience and in best practices, knowing that there might be someone in the room who's the sole person of communications, or someone else who has a team of 5 with them. So just wanted to add that as we break out. And Paige, just let us know when you're good.
Thanks a lot, Jolene, and thanks a lot, Paige. If you do find yourself in an English speaking only breakout room, just leave the room. You'll be right in there with me and the Spanish speakers. Si hablé muy rápido, por favor, si te encuentras en un cuarto que con solamente en inglés, por favor, nomás presione el botón para que te puedes regresar al cuarto primera. ¿Cómo se llama?
Principal.
El cuarto principal, muchas gracias. Y luego te vas a encontrar con nosotros en español. All right. I'm going to go ahead and commence the breakout.
Two more minutes, please.
Oh, you got it, Paige. Thanks. Yeah, so keep that in mind exactly. There's going to be a good amount of experiences coming out. And this is exactly why I was telling everyone, don't be shy, be vulnerable. That's the best way I learn. If that doesn't work for you, go ahead and type it in the chat. We are advocating for everyone to to express all your opinions, because you'd be surprised. I know a lot of this stuff we've been experiencing it for our lives for the past 5 years, as cell phones have taken our lives and the internet. And I'm talking specifically 5 years for social media, since that's now our lives. All these little details go a long way. They really do. It can be as simple as keeping it authentic and just filming it on your iPhone. And as we've witnessed, it works. It works a long way. You get 100 likes, you get 200 likes. Sometimes you only get 2 likes. No matter what, every one of our activities and experiences really gives us a learning lesson here. And this is exactly what we want to share.
If folks need to take a water break, I think now would be the time. A water break or a restroom break while Paige sets up the breakout rooms. I'm going to play some music in the meantime for the next minute and a half. I'm going to step away from my computer.
Thanks a lot, Yvette. We're all going to be transporting ourselves into the breakout rooms. We'll see you there.
How long do you like them open, Mario?
20 minutes, please.
20 minutes. Okay. And Mario, you are actually going to be in a room instead of the main room. So I'll just move anybody who needs Spanish into your room. Room 1. All right. See y'all soon.
I think Zoom is taking its time because it's almost 100 of us, right?
Mario, did you not get an invitation?
No, I didn't. Everyone should be having a pop-up asking you to join a room, or the host is asking you to join a room. Go ahead and click confirm or yes.
No.
I'm not getting that pop-up.
I am thinking it might be because because it was originally disabled when everybody logged on. Jolene.
Yeah.
I just need to stay in the main room.
Yeah. Well, then we'll do a huge breakout room. We'll make do with technology. So yeah, we're just having a little bit of technical difficulties, y'all, but I think this is the reality of being online and all of that good stuff. But with that said, then let's go ahead and stay here. El canal de español, nos vamos a quedar en este cuarto. And we're just going to share amongst ourselves then what are some best practices. And I'll ask my team to chime in as well. We got some great facilitators prepped, and I don't want them to lose their moment either. But we want to hear more about best practices that have been working for your organizations, or specifically to you've seen all these challenges. What are some ideas you can consider taking to your organizations based on what you've learned or the challenges that you've seen? So I can start us off. So avoiding jargon. So much usage of technical wording. Anyone here, how do you guys avoid that? How do you make things simple? Do you have someone provide feedback from the community that you're serving directly? What are some things that you guys do?
I can just say, I hope you guys can hear me. My name is Antonia from Finger Lakes Community Health in Wayne County, New York. We've noticed actually, if you hang out literature that's like long, it's a lot of information, they automatically lose interest and reading the entire paragraph. But if you give them just very simple words and you capture their attention better. We do a lot of outreach. We provide healthcare services, and we have a mobile medical unit that we go to the migrant camps. And so we learn, and you know, through the years, and if we want to get that attention, you know, and also the workers are tired. they're not gonna be, like sitting down and listening or reading all the information. But if you just leave it very simple, we also notice it more like pictures. Pictures, it works better for us than an actual, reading stuff.
Thank you,
Hi,
Antonia.
Antonia. This is Jen Lynn. It was good to hear your voice, and I agree with you. For people who don't know me, I work at Oak Orchard Health and also Migrant Education Program. I agree with everything Antonia said, and I just would also add just having very forefront your audience when you're preparing content, whether that's a PowerPoint or a presentation for your audience, or whether that's our social media posts for our clients or patients.
Thank you both for sharing. We also see on the chat that folks are saying in being very specific in what we're asking. So I think it ties beautifully into what you guys are saying of keeping the people that you're trying to reach in the forefront. Someone also in the chat said, I'm new to outreach through social media, but I've heard that posting content that is not only about your organization helps draw people into your social media channel. Anyone had success that way as well, or seen more engagement as you're tagging other people?
This is Lisa Briseño from CDC, and I can't say that I can't speak to trying that as an organization, but I have read information from other firms involved in social media that attests to that. In addition, I said that's completely consistent with one of our recommendations about working with partners. People often seek confirmation of the information they're hearing from multiple sources. And so when you share something on your channel, you're saying, look, it's not just us saying that. These other people whom you trust are saying this as well.
Right. Yeah, this is Naomi Heiso. I work for MSU Extension. So we're in Michigan, and I deal with the migrant farm worker population. I'm a health educator. So yeah, definitely working with the local migrant council, working with the Hispanic centers and having them promote also my programs on their social media pages.
Thank you all for sharing. So we have our first challenge here. So a challenge that we have. So hello, I'm representing a county health department in southeastern Wisconsin. So this is Rachel. How about Rachel? Do you want to ask your question to the group? How about we let you?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, so we try and post, I'm representing a local health department or a county health department in southeastern Wisconsin, and we're trying to engage more of our farm worker population and migrant population. And so we try and translate things as much as we can, and we don't get a ton of engagement, especially on the posts that are in Spanish. So I'm just wondering if anyone has strategies to get more people engaged with our page in the first place.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rachel. I'm going to jump on in and just give a little NCFH perspective. One of our tactics of what we've been doing is that, for example, on Facebook, we specifically target culturally relevant, as we call it, right? We specifically target farm worker groups and agricultural worker groups of any capacity. And this includes not just farm serving organizations, but this includes as well as joining and posting supermarket or flea market Facebook groups, or Facebook groups that in any way even touch H2A relationships, or in any capacity. It could even be some of the groups that I've joined just solely speaks about food. and their love for food. And so we just post on there as well. And it could seem a little irrelevant, but you'd be surprised on the interaction that you get there. And that's one of our tactics. Does anyone do something similar like that, where they go into Facebook groups and post on there, or other groups, like if you find a channel on YouTube?
This is Ismael Macho from New Mexico Legal Aid, and I'm a member of the Coalition of Agricultural Workers in New Mexico and Advocates in New Mexico, and we're doing something similar. So what we're doing is using Facebook, we're using that page to, I guess, relay our message to agricultural workers. So it's the Center Law on Poverty, New Mexico Legal Aid, and then other advocates for farm workers. And so we're trying to use that forum to, I guess, raise the issues that farm workers face. But like New Mexico Legal Aid, it's embarrassing. We have our own page, but it's difficult to administer. So we don't I don't know how to post information there. So that's why I went with this other organization. I can just jump on in and contribute to that. The other thing, one last thing that we did that I thought would be interesting maybe, is we also partnered with the Mexican consulate in Albuquerque. And the reason I raise it is because they're even though I'm fluent in Spanish, their language, obviously vocabulary is much higher than mine, and they seem to be more comfortable using their own jargon than they. And I'm assuming that they either assume or I'm not sure how concerned they are about their message reaching just normal Mexicanos, that those of us that only had like a 4th grade education in Mexico.
Thank you, Ismael. Catherine, I know you had a question. Do you want to ask it?
Hi there. Yeah, I just, we have a Facebook, Instagram, and everything. Our organization is both, it's called the Warwick Area Farmworker Organization, and we have one of the programs we do is a summer program for children, and we have a lot of the children's pictures, and the parents like to go and see the kids. And I always would like to have both Spanish and English references on the website, but I don't know how to divide it. Any logistical recommendations on how to make it look, easily bilingual?
I wonder if Edgar could jump in, because you guys are doing 3 or 4 languages, right? You have any tips, Edgar?
Yeah, when it's possible, we try to divide the languages. But sometimes you just have to do everything at the same time. But yeah, we've been trying to divide the language. If it's just like a video that we're just recording, that we do. But sometimes I think we also are thinking about, okay, who really needs to hear this message the most? And if it's in Mixteco, like if we're organizing or like a union campaign or something, wage theft thing or something other, then we okay, so who's the community that's gonna be really needs to hear this information? And if the person that's speaking feels more comfortable speaking in Mixteco, then just let them do that. Then try to figure out if there's something in Spanish that needs to be said, then we'll just do a summary.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Delia, and I'm from Idaho, work for Idaho Legal Aid for the migrant unit. And my question would be, how do you get workers to maybe follow the page that you have on Facebook? How do you get them, I guess, engaged? Because that's what we're trying to, because given the pandemic, obviously, there hasn't been as much, door-to-door outreach for us, nor have there been opportunities to do presentations to big groups because of COVID. So what is the way, if anybody has some ideas that they could give me, of how to get folks engaged with your pages, like on Facebook?
Our team has seen a lot of success using boosts, even just like a $5 boost on Facebook can actually get a lot of traction if you sort of target it. So you can target it to by location or by the language that people speak, or other like demographic markers. And we've seen that that's been pretty successful in getting more traffic to our page, even with just a very small amount of money. Although I realize not everybody has the budget for that.
Yes, and we're one of those organizations that doesn't have the budget for that. But although there have been some done, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
I work for Legal Assistance of Western New York. I do education and outreach. And for me, sometimes, I mean, we are still having trouble getting, I feel like, enough views and interaction. But what sometimes helps me is that when I speak to people, they just seem to really trust me, like, because I really just try to make it a point to be like, extra nice and listen to everything they're saying. But then when they trust me, they make a lot of referrals to me. And because they trust me, I tell them, hey, we're going to do a presentation, on Facebook Live in Spanish. So if you want to come, or if you want to tell your friends. And then sometimes I'll get maybe a little bit more people watching. So do you want me to do you want me to translate in Spanish? I do speak Spanish. People don't think I do, but I do.
We have a translator, but thank you for offering.
All right.
Hi, this is Nora in El Paso, Texas, and I work with DentaQuest. We are a Medicaid and CHIP dental insurance plan, and so my department is member advocate or outreach. And so, of course, we're a national organization and we have our own marketing team, and they produce, our different outreach flyers and our Facebook. And so we have a department that handles that. However, it's because of COVID, since we weren't able to outreach as much and go out into the community, we would have to contact our main organizations in our regions. And so on a monthly basis. And so sometimes that gets kind of repetitive, the information that we provide. So we try to go ahead and provide different oral health topics each month. And so a lot of people, of course, you think, oh, just, brush your teeth and floss. But of course, oral health affects everybody with diabetes, pregnancy, teens, children. So we try to have different topics, of course. But one of the things that we also are trying to incorporate in some of our outreach is our barcodes, so that they could scan on their phones, and that they could the member can let us know how they would like to be communicated with, through text or through phone, or through our social media outlets.
O los medios sociales. Y así tratamos nosotros de darles la opción de cómo llegar a ellos o cómo. Esas son cosas con las que estamos trabajando en nuestra corporación, y ya que estamos a nivel nacional, pues eso llega a todos en la población.
That we do outreach to that population, it is very difficult. Even when we do like parent meetings, sometimes they just, they can't join, especially virtually. But I think that it's important that we just continue to give our participants some type of option of outreach. So I know sometimes you think, oh, well, our Facebook doesn't have a lot of likes, or they're not really paying attention to it. But I think that if we continue to outreach and just keep on educating our community, that that helps out. That helps out, regardless of sometimes we feel that, oh, our Facebook isn't getting a lot of likes or something like that. But you're still impacting that one person that did like it.
And also sometimes if you put something on, you may not have a lot of interactions right away. But when we follow up for reporting purposes, we do see that people have checked in afterwards. So, like, don't be too discouraged. And what we've done in the past is that we've done we'll do we were on a grant where we were, it was part of our grant to do social media stuff. So we just made sure we did it every month or every 2 weeks, so that, and just kept putting it out there so that people kept, oh, okay, there's another one. No, you didn't miss it. Here's another one. So hopefully that helps.
That's a good point, right? We always want to see immediate satisfaction because that's what technology has made us crave all the time, right? But that's true. I mean, social media is going to be there. So sometimes they'll gain traction. It could be the next day. It could be the next month. And this is exactly what Jolene just posted in the chat. Feel free to share if you all have some success stories, like some viral video that worked for your organization or just your biggest one that worked for y'all. Feel free to share it in the chat so everyone can see. In fact, Jolene, were we going to be sharing everyone's social media handles as well?
Yeah, so one of the things that we wanted to talk to you guys about is we got all these social media handles based on your registration answers. And so at the end on the follow-up email, we are more than happy to share those social media handles so y'all can follow each other and see how your network grows from there. So just as an FYI that we'll have that as the follow-up information. Another good point that there's a lot of stuff happening in the chat. So if you're not looking out in the chat, you're missing out on some great stuff. But I want to highlight something before it passes about incorporating and combining in-person outreach and digital outreach. Estrella, specifically, you were mentioning about starting a Facebook group and posting flyers about that Facebook group in farm workers' workspace or workers' workspace in general. Just want to highlight that that's a really good practice, and digital outreach shouldn't replace in-person. It should go hand in hand with each other. So if anyone has any tidbit of experience or best practices to that can speak to digital and in-person outreach.
We do that at Legal Aid of North Carolina, and this is something I learned from one of the attorneys, Caitlin Ryland. We try to, if a group of workers on an outreach trip raises a particular concern, we'll then sort of invite them to like the Facebook page, and then maybe the next day post whatever educational materials we have about that concern that they raised. So that way the new followers to the page see, oh, wow, these people are really sharing information that's useful to me or that's responsive to my concerns. Or if we do outreach at a place where we've had, like, for example, a previous case or a previous case victory that we have already posted about, we'll reshare those posts after we do that outreach so that people can see information that's especially relevant to them, sort of in response to whatever came up on outreach.
Hola, quisiera compartir con ustedes, soy Griselda aquí con MICOP o con la organización Proyecto Mixteco Indígena en California. Nuestro equipo hace siempre alcance comunitario en diferentes lugares, como por ejemplo en los lugares usualmente donde la comunidad, diferentes comunidades, no solamente la comunidad indígena, llegan, usualmente es en las panaderías, quizás van en los campos a compartir información, los volantes de los lugares donde agarrar la vacuna, donde las pruebas, cosas así, y se comparte en español, en mixteco, en purépecha y en otros variantes y lenguas también, ¿verdad? Y a la vez cuando están haciendo esto, también están haciendo como un pequeño video a través de Facebook, donde ellos están subiendo el video cuando están en vivo. Entonces, hacen el video y luego ponen también la información de los lugares donde van a estar dichos servicios. Entonces, eso nos ha funcionado, es algo que lo hemos implementado en parte de nuestro trabajo. Siempre cuando hacen alcance, siempre hacen este video. Tratamos de que el video no dure más de 2 minutos. ¿Por qué? Porque la comunidad o las personas no les gusta ver videos muy largos, ¿verdad? Entonces, algo corto, algo llamativo, algo cuando se pone la información, igual también poner cosas lo más básico, pero lo más importante también. y esta es la manera como hemos trabajado y hasta el momento nos ha funcionado bastante bien. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Griselda. That's fantastic, Griselda. I wish I could elaborate a little bit more, but the little bit that I can condense here is large videos don't work. That's definitely one of the main points there, especially if you want to grab your audience, right? And we're running short on time, so we wanted to get, unfortunately, we're going to have to break it here as far as our sharing piece. But as someone mentioned, this is a growing communication network that we're trying to create here. So just our meeting here is just the first step in what we hope to continue elaborating on and creating together, right? Especially in sharing all our social media handles and sharing all our experiences. And of course, communicating in the future through social media, right? So we can support each other through that way, because we know that this industry that we tackle on an everyday basis is pretty difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can go into the next steps. And we can talk about the goodies that you're going to be getting right after this. Jolene, did you want me to share the screen, or you want to share the screen?
You can do it if you want.
You got it. I have no preference and I'm already doing it. Oh, you know what? And my screen's going to freeze there. Oh, it didn't. Great. You should be seeing the next steps here. And there's also a QR code that you can also go ahead and capture if you'd like. And we're going to be elaborating a little bit more. In fact, I'm going to let you take over from here for the training evaluation, Jolene.
Yes, so thank you so much for everyone for attending this, for your insights, for your storytelling, for sharing your experiences. We deeply appreciate it. And as we continue to hear more and troubleshooting, and as we're growing this communications network, we also want to learn more of how to improve the trainings in the future and improve this communications network so we can be of use for you guys. And in order to do so, we do it through evaluations of trainings. So I went ahead and sent through the chat the links for evaluations. There's a link for English and a link for Espanol. There's also a QR code on the screen that you can take a picture of, and that's the English survey. Para mis hablantes en español, usen el link que está en los mensajes. If you can please take time to fill that out and how we can improve the training for next time, anything, things that you liked, things you disliked. We take that feedback very serious so we can improve our communications network trainings. And then I'll pass it over to Mario to talk a little bit more about the Sol a Sol newsletter.
Thanks, Jolene. Yeah, I'd like to elaborate on our bi-weekly newsletter that we have from NCFH that focuses on COVID resources and news. And as I'm going through this, go ahead and click on that link and continue the training evaluation. As Jolene mentioned, they're pretty, we take them very, very seriously. So any evaluation you give us, we'd be more than happy to hear from you. So go ahead and click on that link in the chat or get that QR code as I just keep elaborating here. The Bulletin Sol a Sol, as our newsletter is called, it publishes on Thursdays. In fact, it's going to come out tomorrow. We're going to go ahead and put the link in there so you can go ahead and subscribe to that. It's actually a shorter style of a newsletter compared to, for example, the CDC's newsletter. So you're not going to be overwhelmed with too much, but the resources they definitely highlight a lot of NCFHs, a lot of our partners, of course, the CDC's resources, and as well as any great resources that we see. So if you do have something you'd like to share, we can definitely consider. As I mentioned, it comes out every 2 weeks and on Thursdays. And so if you subscribe today or by tomorrow, you'll go ahead and get the first issue. We're on issue 22 now, coming out tomorrow, Thursday. So we're pretty excited on that. Once again, the link will be there in the chat so you can subscribe. You'll just need to put your name and your email and maybe your organization, and then we can keep in touch as well. We share a lot of resources, and this includes things you can share. We're also going to be sharing the social media toolkit that we're going to be elaborating on right now, which includes a media repository. And the media repository is basically a lot of goodies for you to use for your social media as well as just for your outreach efforts. And this includes audio, music, videos that we've created, informational videos. And there's also some audio on vaccine information in 5 indigenous languages, including Triqui, Mam, Purepecha, etc. Central American and Mexican American languages there primarily. And of course, for social media, we have a good amount of photos that seemingly you would think would be stock photos from a professional. And we're lucky to have one of our staff members be a professional photographer, Aaron, who took a good amount of photos of farm workers in the field. So you can have some authentic photos so you can share. And so it can be, not just the same old thing that we continually recycle, right? Or it's something that's a professional photo out with some green screen. So with that, be sure to subscribe to the newsletter. It's a growing newsletter and still young at 22 issues, 21, 22 issues. And from there, we look forward to seeing you and seeing that grow.
Yeah, so just be on the lookout for the follow-up email with all the amazing links that we just saturated the chat with, some of the evaluation links, the newsletter, subscription link, and then as Mario mentioned, the COVID-19 messaging social media toolkit specifically for farm workers and their families with all the amazing things that you'll see in there. And that is about it. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to meet you all. Con las cumbias. Karen, I'm not sure if you're speaking with us because you're muted.
I'm muted, but also don't have anything to say.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Aaron. I see Karen is.
Oh, Karen. Yeah.
It's okay.
I
And
also saw Karen moving her mouth. I didn't know if she wanted to add something or.
Not sure. It might not have been us. It's okay.
Ya se fue.